very first event, which was your art auction, your silent art auction. That's what it was. And Peter very kindly showed me around, and I have to say, all the information that he fed to me then has been very, very useful. And I can even start to identify a couple of artists' work now when we are out and about. So it really was invaluable. But because he told me I was an honorary member, I went back to the office and I asked, what else was I a member of? And I got a sheet this long. But nobody else has invited me to anything yet, so I do really appreciate being here and being an honorary member. And while it's still early days, there's not a whole lot to tell, but I have had my first full council meeting, which was the meeting I was dreading the most. But it went very well. Fortunately, it wasn't a contentious agenda, and I introduced electronic voting for the first time, and every item we did with an electronic vote. And it was quite amusing because some people got up and spoke very passionately about something, and then when it came to the voting, and at the end of the vote it comes up on a big screen saying who voted what, and the ones who'd done all this passionate talking did not vote. So it caused quite a few laughs in the chamber, so that was quite fun. And I did lay down a lot of rules. I did get told off afterwards because I was told I was too strict on members of the public by not allowing them to overspeak very much. However, I take that on board, but I think for the first meeting you've got to be strict with everyone, and the public's people speak first. Had I allowed them to get away with it, I could never have stopped the other councillors getting away with it. So in the future, I will still be strict, but I might say you've got 30 seconds or something to wind up. So no one's gonna run away. My background before being a mayor, I've had a bit of a roller coaster ride through life. Nothing's ever been easy. Everything good that seems to come my way, someone seems to, from up there or down there, snatch it away before it comes to me. And being mayor to me is the best thing that's ever happened. I'm not saying that, well, the happiest day of my life was the day I got married, but then I'm divorced, so that's a bit of a misdemeanour. But when I got married, it was the happiest day of my life. But being mayor is the happiest year of my life, for sure. And a lot of events I've been to, I've heard before I've gone, oh, this is so boring, that's so boring, oh, you were... And I have to be perfectly honest, I have loved everything that I've been to, and I've really enjoyed it. And somebody said to me the other day, the reason you've enjoyed it is because you went in embracing everything and knowing you only had this job for 1 year and that you were going to love this year, and that's why I think I love everything about it. I haven't hated or disliked anything that I've done. My background, I am an ex-married person. I have 2 sons. They haven't turned out as well as I'd like them to, but how many do these days? So they're a little bit disappointing, but they are. I mean, if I needed something, I could rely on them, but they drive me bonkers on a day-to-day basis. But that's probably not unusual with families. I have 5 grandchildren. Neither of my sons have been married. One is with a partner who already had 2 children and has since had 2 sons, and one of those sons has just sort of stuck to me. I don't know why. I haven't done anything to attract him, but he just seems to have found me. And unfortunately now his younger brother's getting a bit older, and it's, I want to come too. So I think I'm going to have to start saying no, because managing 1 is a lot easier than 2. I have 2 other grandsons from my other son, but early on in the relationship the mother told me to get lost, using those words we were talking about earlier, that we won't mention. And so I didn't have anything really to do with their upbringing. So I don't feel a close relationship. And prior to them being born, the same son had my granddaughter, who's 20 now. And most of you probably are aware she is supposed to be my mayoress or my consort. But just as I became mayor, she found a boyfriend, and she obviously finds the boyfriend a lot more entertaining than being here and at other events with me. But I am trying to change that slowly. When I first left school, I worked at Brighton Polytechnic, which is now Brighton University, and I worked as a lab technician. I worked in the language lab, so I dealt with a lot of tapes and recorders and sort of sound equipment. And when I went to take a course on lab technician, it was obviously all chemistry and science and physics, so I was a bit lost there, so I never completed the course. And at the university I did a lot with film and TV as well, so I suppose that, and when I was younger having a lot to do with dance and elocution and tap and ballet, it probably made me find it easier to talk in front of a group of people. I don't really get nervous, I always think what am I going to say, but I get there hopefully in the end. And then of course I got married, and I was married to a military man, so I did travel a little bit. He was an American, so I spent quite a few years in America, and it was one of his tours of duty took him abroad, and he never came back, so that's really how we ended up not together. And because I was alone in a foreign country, things did get a bit difficult, so eventually I came home here with the children, and then I didn't really like it, so I went back with the children. But I only lasted about another 6 months and I came back again, but that's another story. So that's how I've ended up back here, and I've never regretted coming back here because I've met so many wonderful people since I've been back. Unfortunately, being a single mother, I've had to work a lot, so I've always worked 7 days, 5 nights for the last 25 or 30 years. So for me, being mayor is not tiring. People say, oh, you'll be so tired, you know, you never stop. But to me, it is easy because Robbie here picks me up and drops me off most of the time. Sometimes I have somebody else. And ladies here will understand how easy it is when you get door-to-door service. We put on these high heels, and if you've got to clump down to the bus stop and then clump to where you're going when you get off the bus, by the time you get there your feet are done in and you want to kick your shoes off. Whereas I'm very fortunate that having this door-to-door service, my feet are still fresh when I arrive, so I can stand a bit longer. So it is to me a lot easier than what I was doing. Since I was back in England, and I did start when I was overseas, I did life saving. I became a lifeguard, and then I became a teacher. I taught in Gallaudet University for the deaf and the dumb, and I taught CPR and life saving, both sort of wet and dry side. And it's amazing to me here that we're still so backwards with the machinery and equipment we use here, and I'm going back 20 years now, and we had a lot more modern, cleaner equipment to protect us from the germs and diseases that are about. But that's how I got started in sort of swimming, and from then I'm a very good swimming teacher. I can have most people swimming in 10 to 20 minutes from a non-swimmer. The only time it will take longer is if they've got a big fear of the water and they don't do as you ask them to do. But if you do what I tell you to do, I am very good. And there's not much that I can't answer about swimming. There's a lot I couldn't answer about politics. And then, of course, doing the swimming, I did the aqua instructor as well. Consequently, I've taught some land aerobics and other sporty things. I've always been very sporty. I'm a badminton coach. And I don't know, lots of other little things. I love short courses, but I'm not very keen on the big long-term ones now. So that's a little bit about my background. As I said, being a public person, I've never found it very stressful, but I think it's because I've always been a bit public. I worked a lot with the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts of America, and I volunteered a lot doing their trips, and I've, used to being in front of a lot of people. I used to teach a group of children Mickey Mouse-a-size. Do you remember the Mickey Mouse Club? And they do Mickey Mouse-a-size. So in one of the youth clubs I used to teach Mickey Mouse-a-size. And there isn't really anything I didn't expect with this job other than how much more work I had to do. For one, I didn't realise I still had to be a local ward councillor, so you still have all that work to do. I expected a lot more support from all around me. I'll just put it that way, I won't go into that anymore, but I find that I'm extremely busy and I feel I've got so much to do. And because you're doing so many events like this, you really don't, not that we get dinners, but you don't have time to do all what needs to be done. And I think that the mayor in Brighton and Hove, and probably in any city, but particularly in Brighton and Hove, because it is a very prestigious and busy job, would work a lot better if they had one professional PA and one backup person in the office, instead of 5 people that really don't know what the other one is doing. So that's it. To go on to my charities, I ended up with 5 charities simply because I did interview them with the members that were on my charities committee, and I couldn't decide which ones to throw out because they all presented so very well. So I've got the Rocking Horse, which is the children's charity and to do with the Royal Alexander Hospital and the Trevor Mann Baby Unit. And I think, to me, that's especially close because my 3rd grandson, which is the one that's attached to me, he was born very early, and although it wasn't here, he was in a different area, he was hooked up to machines for sort of the first week of his life. So to me, having a good welcome into the world or something to keep you going was very important. I've also got Brighton and Hove Age UK. Last year, my dad was diagnosed with dementia, and he's gone downhill very, very rapidly. And I took my mum to see Age UK. She's not in Brighton, but they were very helpful to us and gave a lot of information, and they said they'll always be there for us. So that was why I chose Brighton and Hove Age UK. The Argus Appeal, I chose the Argus Appeal because I knew I couldn't accept everybody that wanted me to choose them for a charity, and by having the Argus Appeal I could direct them to apply to the Argus Appeal for funding directly from the Argus. So while I'm not working for them directly, I am indirectly. So that was why I had the Argus Appeal. The Martletts Hospice, my granddaughter's mother died about 5 years ago. I said, how would you want to live like that? Well, I've actually had less than that before, so it would have been quite nice and self-contained, mine, and cheaper. So I would have welcomed it, but I was always mocked for making the comment. Funny moments. I haven't really had any funny moments, but I suppose the most entertaining moment I've had so far is when we did the Doreen Valiente Blue Plaque. She was the witch, and there were people turned, well, you can imagine the costumes people turned up in, and you had sort of drummers and then and they were sort of like doing a stand-off with each other, so that was really quite exciting. And I have to say it's the worst weathered day I've had so far, and I did get a photo in the Telegraph, and I actually look like a witch myself in the picture, if you've seen it. I have, yeah. I thought, oh my God, I just look like a witch in this picture, because I hate my side profile. Not that I love the front much more, but the side is really awful. But some people thought it was a lovely photo. I just thought I looked like a witch. So that was probably the most entertaining thing I've done. We did have two people came down to give us a talk or training on how to walk in and out of a room, and a few other things. I have to say I don't really think I learnt anything from it, except, and Robbie loves this, I learnt that we all have 3 voices, and I don't know if any of you are actors, you probably know of it. You can speak from your chest, you know, it's that dark, sexy voice, which somebody here can't stand. And then you've got the speaking from your mouth, and then of course you speak through the head. So I did learn the 3 ways of talking, and once you know it, it's actually quite funny because you can hear people changing, and while the slower one has been harder, I found if I'm teaching, because sometimes you do drain your voice, although I've done voice projection before, I never covered these 3 voices. And I find if you are trying to reach out to a wider audience, you don't need to drop quite so sexily low. But if you're out loud, you can drop it down and sound loud, and it's quite effective. So that's probably the best thing I've learned since I've been mayor. But I think I'm very, very privileged to be mayor of such a wonderful city full of such a diverse community, and this to me really is a dream come true, something I would never have imagined. So thank you.